Let's get started. Good morning. I'm Bonnie O'Regan. Let me share my screen here. Today's a little bit different because I did send out the YouTube video of the presentation. So it's a little bit new format for us. Okay, so now you can see where I'm starting with. So let's go through some of the questions that I have heard the most. I'm going to flip through this. Can I get a sense of if people have actually seen this? I don't want to repeat. I want to go through things quickly. I don't want to waste anybody's time this morning. And then I'm watching in the Q&A to put in for any questions that people have. So you received the placement scores in December. And there's a number of questions that always come up around what were the tests and what do they mean? Overarching, most of the questions have to do with wanting to make sure, and I don't want to say most, I would say all of the questions are making sure that the students are in the right place and are getting the right level of instruction. The grade 2 program is enrichment. It's in addition to the core curriculum. So for the pull-out enrichment, the students still are responsible for their reading instruction, and they're pulled out sometimes during reading class, sometimes during WIN time for 2 hours of reading. And for math, they have their math instruction and they're pulled out for 2 hours of enrichment. And that could be during their math time or again during their WIN time. At the end of the year, we will be assessing the students again, and not really the end of the year. It's in the spring, it'll be March, for the advanced academic to replace the curriculum where the ALP teacher becomes their reading or math teacher. Okay, so the placement phase, the referral phase, and again, this is circular because it's constantly evolving. The referral phase starts with us collecting the objective data and what their students are doing in school. This is any assessment data that the teachers have, any observations that the teachers have of the students in the classroom. We look at the STAR assessments during this time, and then we say, do we want to dig in a little bit more deeply? And then we also ask parents. Then we go into the evaluation phase. These are when we look at students a little bit more deeply. Let's look at above level achievement tests. Let's look at some above level in performance tests. And then we look at the placements. Now the placements are based upon triangulation. We look at ability, performance, and achievement. Ability, you'll just look through here. The ability is looking at how you reason with words or reason with numbers. It's your analogies, it's your number sense, it's your word sense, it's how the words work together, it's how the numbers work together. Then the cognitive abilities test then is scored based upon the student's age. So the students are that a nationally normal score at the 50th percentile is 100 with a 15 standard deviation of 15. And so students are being compared with other students who are in the same 3-month band. So a student who is 8 years old is only being compared with kids who are 7 years, 11 months old, 8 years old, and 8 years, 1 month old. So it's a 3-month band that the students are being compared to. The national average is again 100, so 89 to a 111 is the national average. In Greenwich, our average is 110 to 128. So when we look at very high scores, range in Greenwich at 139 and above. And achievement, the second portion of this, is about how the students have acquired information. Here we use the MAP test, the NWEA. This is computer adaptive, and students will get questions that are well above level. They are, again, there's a single answer. In reading, they will be asked to read a passage or read something short and answer a question. They'll be asked to pick out a sentence from the text that supports an opinion. And in math, not only do they have multiple choice questions, but then they also have constructed answers. But there are a single correct answer and a single way to do these correctly. In these, the students are then scored using a RASH unit. Those RASH unit scores, or the RIT scores, are comparable across all grade levels. And this is a point at which the students are answering the questions 50% of the time. This is, so as I was conducting these assessments with the students, this is not like your math test that the students take after the end of a unit, or their spelling tests, or what, that the students are not expected to get all of them right. That they need, we want to find out what they're looking forward to learning and what they don't know. So, however, all of these questions are, this is your brain, and this is your brain on a multiple choice test in these types of situations. So we also look at a performance task, and this is where we look at how the students are using those reasoning skills that we looked at in the cognitive abilities test and their content knowledge, and how are they applying it. So we look at a fable, and then the students are reading then they're asked to have an open response. So the questions then are scored on a rubric. And so you can look at, here's a sample where the student may look at, what does this fable tell you about the concept of friendship? Well, so don't laugh at your friends is a non-response for in the context of this. Whereas if you can see where a level 3 response is, this is a student who has not only looked at and is able to read and comprehend what's going on, but is also being able to analyze and use their reasoning. In the math performance tasks, what the students are asked to do is do non-routine questions. So they're not given the format in order to solve the questions, but they are asked to come up with their own problem-solving strategy to use this. So in the hens and the sheep example here, there's 8 hens and 22 feet. The most common wrong answer here happens to be 30. However, if they look at this, because they just want to do a computation. So, but if there's 8 heads and each hen has 2 feet, you have 16 feet. So they can just keep on adding feet until they come up with that indeed there are 5 hens. Then we get together as a committee and look at what is best for the students. We look at everything. We look at what they've been doing in school also. No one score. Now, this is the most common question that I've gotten is to, okay, so how do we determine the placement? Students needed to have a cumulative point total of 14 out of the 30 possible. There's 10 points possible for each component. So if you look at the RIT score for their NWEA reading, an ideal student that we are looking for would have a RIT score of at least a 205 for reading, which would earn them 6 points. For ability, you are looking at a standard age score of a 132, would earn them 6 points. And the performance, when we're looking at the 12 out of the 4 questions, 3 points each, that's 12 points possible, that we want to have a 7 there for 6 points. You can see here the ideal student would have 18 points, but we're looking at 14 points for the students for the pull-out enrichment. The same holds true for the math. You're looking at a RIT score on the NWEA of a 207. You're looking at a standard age score of 137 on the CogAT. And on the math performance, looking at 5 of the 8 questions correct or more. And again, 14 out of those 30 possible points for that pull-out math enrichment. But as I said, this is a circular process. So we're constantly looking at students throughout the process. So we're looking again, not right now, we did look at, there are students who were close, maybe had 12 points or maybe 10 points on the rubric and said, you know what, let's see how they're, let's see where they're going and growing, and let's plan on them and looking at an evaluation again in the spring. And you're certainly, when you ask me to look at them again, we will be looking at those students again. I will be looking at the students' STAR scores that they're going to be taking later on this month also. So we have the questions, and I see one question here. Can we see the test to review them? We do not communicate the results to the children per se, and the tests are secure, so the educators are able to look through the tests and looking at those and look to determine where they're going, but I cannot share those actual test responses with you. However, I am happy to talk with you about your individual child's responses and how what the interplay between the three mean. The CogAT sheet that was handed out in the past, in prior years, we have given the CogAT to all second graders. This year, the CogAT was given only to those students who were being considered for the pull-out program. And we only gave the students the portion of the assessment for which they were being considered. So if a student was being considered for reading pull-out, then they took the verbal battery. If they were being considered for math pull-out, they took the quantitative battery. And so we did not take the full battery. And so therefore we did not use the system, the online system that generates the big handout for what the percentiles are. And we did not use the nonverbal this year. Other questions? Students who are fully remote will be working on playlists that will be, those are being launched for the week of January 18th. And the spring testing, yes, we will be doing spring testing. Testing will all be in person. So if the student is going from remote back into in-person learning at this point in the year, just contact me if you want to be considered for the pull-out enrichment. in the buildings. The CogAT is generally not being given for the second graders who have already taken it in the fall. There are a few exceptions, and those are case by case basis. Okay, answered that one. I heard that ALP will not be given if we go remote, but we're in regular. Oh, the remote school. Remote school is the grade 2 ALP is independent. Independent playlist work that the students can complete during their win time. We do not have a pull-out grade 2 program in remote school. If you appeal the decision, what you're doing is you're saying what you want your child considered for the next round of testing, and we will put them on the list automatically to be considered for in the spring. Best way to get specific feedback about your child is to contact me. You can either use the, oops, go back here. This form here, which is linked in the letter, in the email that I got you, or you can email me here. Email me, and I will pass that information on to Robin Byron, who arranges all of my meetings. The playlists for remote school are for remote school only. They're not available. I'm not making those public. If you are, for the students who are in remote and are remaining in remote for the remainder of the year, the testing for the in the spring for those students will need to be in person. We're working on the details as to how we can go about doing that. How we can go about doing that safely, if we need to wait until buildings reopen, or if we're able to pull students in small groups. We're working through the details of that for all of the grade levels at this point. If your class goes remote, if your cohort goes remote, then if you have a pull out, the pull out in that go, if you're being quarantined, I'm looking at if North Street goes remote, we lose ALP. Is that true? If you're in a pull-out class and you've already gotten started, we're not starting our pull-out classes until we're back in person to begin them next week. But if you go on to quarantine, then those will be continuing. The remote students' work will be looked at by me. If your class is going remote and so if your class goes remote because of being quarantined, you have the ALP teacher in your building will be in contact with those students. Grade 2 ALP starting. The pull-out classes should be starting next week when we're back in our buildings. And the remote playlists will be the following week. Any other questions? None? Oh, the notification about the testing in the spring will be coming out. It will not be, I apologize. I should have had that on silent. Will be coming out in mid-February, after February break, but not the week after February break. It'll be, I think it's like the week after that. Any other questions? The samples for the CogAT, I have embedded the samples, what I have in the PowerPoint presentation. Any other questions? I'm looking sideways because I have my. Contact me about the remote students. If you're remote, contact me. The more detailed CogAT samples, the ones I have are the ones that are publicly available when I go and just search cognitive abilities test. Those are the samples that I use. I know that there are some tutoring companies and such that have put together some of their own materials, but I use materials only that were produced by the company that wrote the CogAT. If you want if you want your child retested in the spring, you can do that now or you can do it later. It doesn't matter. I'll be sending that email out just the same as I did this time. Anything else? Did I answer everyone's questions? Anything else? Thank you. I see the people are starting to log off. So thank you very much.